they're in solar. And we have the same thing with wind companies. They just simply cannot get projects built in British Columbia. Alberta has more wind than British Columbia, and this is at a time when we have a climate crisis that needs direct and immediate action. So I don't think any party other than the Green Party has a very clear and comprehensive stand on fossil fuels.
Are you frustrated with them, though, that they are not, that are kind of waffling on these issues?
I'm frustrated that we don't take seriously the consequences of the climate crisis, and that we're not prepared to act to create a different kind of economy that would be a better economy for most British Columbians. And that's the reason that the Green Party proposes different ways of approaching things. Am I frustrated that the other parties don't seem to see the urgency of action? Of course I am.
Jane, the other parties that rolled out fiscal plans, you haven't had any kind of an official rollout. So I guess as far as your party goes, where would you generate revenue to fund some of the ideals you have?
Well, revenue would be generated in strong local economies. And we don't have a fiscal plan in the way that the others do, because theirs is a magical budget. It's designed for the election. We don't know the books. One of the things that the Green Party would do is, when our MLAs go into the legislature, we'll find out the true state of the fiscal reality in British Columbia. There's all kinds of Auditor General's reports that suggest that we're in serious trouble. And we then can take a more comprehensive look at the budget. So we would propose to look at the revenue of British Columbia, and we would spend it according to the priorities that the people of British Columbia have. And I don't think currently those priorities are the ones that the government attends to. We have $300 million a year in subsidies to the oil and gas industry. I think the people of British Columbia would find that shocking. We don't have enough money to ensure that people are living above the poverty line. But if we used our money differently, we could. Those are things that seems incomprehensible to the Green Party. And so we would do things differently. We're not very vague. You look at our platform, we're the only party that has a platform that's online always. We don't roll out an election platform. Our policies are there. They're 30 years of work. We've gone to experts. We've gone to the people of British Columbia. We've gone to our members to develop that policy. It's very comprehensive in every area of provincial jurisdiction.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay. Thanks.
Could it be?
You could actually say CKNW.
Could it be? Are we allowed to say the giant CKNW? Do people say that? People say that? And why isn't it in New Westminster anymore? That's the other key question. I really enjoyed the debate. It was great. It was a great opportunity. I thought everybody did well. I was very pleased that I was able to keep to the 45-second time limit for answers. I think that people in the press gallery I know who listen to me give long answers to questions, serious questions, might be surprised by that. I also thought the key issues that we're raising in the election campaign of jobs and skills training. I had an opportunity to debate those, and I thought that was very positive. I think in contrast, frankly, we saw a lot of the same old lines, the same old attack lines, of course, but the decision of the Premier to cite rating agency reports that don't say what the Premier asserts, I don't think is the proper approach. Further, I think that the discussion of the Therapeutics Initiative, which is a crucial issue in public health care, the control of pharmaceutical costs, I mean, showed that, you know, unfortunately, the government has made a very serious mistake on that question, and apparently without basis.
Mr. Hicks, do you not think that you're scaring away business already by taking this stance with Kinder Morgan? You have not seen the official application at all, yet you're already saying no to Kinder Morgan.
It's good.
What does this say about investment in this province when you're not even elected yet?
Good to see you, Jazz. Good to see you. Good to see you here at this press event. I've met with hundreds of business people over the last number of years. I strongly support economic development, strongly support LNG, have put together a plan working with people in the forest industry to improve our forest industry. This decision, I think, the decision to say that we don't want to transform Metro Vancouver into an oil tanker export port is the right decision. Lots of businesses support it. Well, it transforms, as you know, Jazz, it transforms what Kinder Morgan does from what it does now to something different, which is to export primarily to Asia, it would appear. And so it's a major increase in oil tanker traffic. I think that's not in our economic interests. Certainly it wouldn't. It certainly adds to the risk of tanker traffic dramatically. No one can dispute that. And I think that we have to continue to grow our economy. I just don't think that transforming Vancouver into an oil tanker port is the right approach.
When did you make that decision? When did you make this decision?
Well, I announced on Earth Day, as you know, because you were there, John, my view that there is a difference, of course, between Enbridge and Kinder Morgan. As you know, Enbridge has been in a long application process, and we've responded to that. Kinder Morgan hasn't yet applied. But I simply make it clear on that day in the election campaign, my view that we didn't want to transform Vancouver and Metro Vancouver into an export port for oil tankers, that we would dramatically increase that. And the decision was made to present that on Earth Day. It was made when I announced that on Earth Day as part of our environmental announcement. Obviously, because as all of you know, I take these issues very seriously. I've done a lot of work on them over time. Obviously, we've given considerable thought over time to them, but the time I made the decision was when I made the announcement.
Is it right that you made up your mind in January? That's the quote that the Premier keeps talking about, that you told people you made up your mind in January.
Of course, it's not a quote. I mean, it's not a quote. What happened in January was Kinder Morgan upped the size of what it was doing significantly. I think it was on January 10th. But that certainly wasn't when I made the decision. I take seriously the issue. I've looked through it over time. We'll, of course, see the application from Kinder Morgan when it comes, but I thought it would be important as a candidate for Premier of British Columbia to set out the parameters of what I thought would work and what I thought wouldn't work. And I think transforming that port into an oil tanker export port is not in the interest of Metro Vancouver. I think people in Metro Vancouver agree with that.
When did you make the decision? When did you make the decision? You're being disingenuous, sir. You're being disingenuous if you say that you made it the day of the decision. That's ridiculous. When did you make the decision? Was it a week before, 2 months before, 3 months before? That's what the people of British Columbia want to know. When did you make the decision?
I think, Jazz, what the people of British Columbia want to know is what the decision is. And we have, but Jazz, you know, it's great. We have these exchanges. It's great to have these. And when I made the decision was when we made the decision to proceed with that as part of our announcement on Earth Day, which was, I think, April the 23rd. That's when the decision was made. That's when it was announced. And people can now judge whether it was the right decision or not. So we announced the decision in Kamloops that morning. So that's what we did. So the idea that when you made the decision, in a decision that you're thinking about over time, and then you decide to make the decision, then you announce it. That's the way that we decide on everything. And I think that that's the right way to do it. I take the decision-making process very seriously, Jazz. And so I think you give a lot of thought to these things. You consult with a lot of people. You think about them a lot. And then you come to make a decision, and then you announce the decision. And I think that's the exact right approach. And that's the way I always conduct myself. I'm a very methodical person.
But you have been out there recently, a few weeks ago, saying that you would give the Kinder Morgan file their application. So were you in fact being honest with the public?
Well, it continues to be the case. It continues to be the case that Kinder Morgan hasn't applied, which is a significant difference between Kinder Morgan and Enbridge. That's the reality. But you know, I think what I thought would be important to make clear is what I thought the future of Metro Vancouver would be. And I strongly took the view that we should indicate now in the election campaign that what wasn't acceptable to us was a multi-fold increase in oil tanker traffic. And so I said that, I said it in Kamloops, and I'm very proud of it.
Why are you unable to come up with a timeline then? Why are you unable to give us a timeline? You decided to do that.
The timeline is very clear. The timeline is very clear. We decided to do it. We announced it on Earth Day in Kamloops.
But when did you decide to do it? That's the missing part of the story.
We decided to make the policy decision after a lot of thought and a lot of effort in the days leading up to Kamloops, and we announced it in Kamloops. So we made the decision effectively. Well, Ed, the decision is made when you announce it. That's when the decision is made, because you're communicating that message, and everyone knows it. That's when the decision is made, and that's when we made this decision. And so it's your interest in my decision making and my thinking and the thinking of our team is compelling. But when you make the decision is when you announce it, and I announced it very clearly on April 23rd in Kamloops for all to see.
How do you square that by saying that you were going to wait until they made a formal review application?
Well, with respect to the application, it's in a different phase than the Enbridge Northern Gateway application. And so they haven't made, Kinder Morgan hasn't made an application yet, right? And so
You
what,
made
so,
a decision when they did, when you had all the facts in
You're
front of you.
being disingenuous, sir. When? That's all we're asking. Let the public know when you make the decision.
April
A week
tw-
before, 2 weeks before, a month.
April
before.
23rd.
You announced it then. When did you make the decision?
I
on
made,
Kinder
I
Morgan?
made the decision, as I said several times before, and
You
it
announced it,
doesn't
you
change.
announced it.
Well, you
When
know,
did you make the decision, Mr. Dix? It's a
Ja-
simple question.
April 23rd.
But the logic doesn't make sense. You decided, for example, to be here today. You decided before coming here today.
Of course.
Well,
But when you make a public policy decision, when you come out with a budget, it's on budget day. Obviously, there's lots of thinking that goes into it, but the budget is out on budget day. This was the day we announced this decision, and it's pretty straightforward to me that you announce a decision, you lay it out for people, you lay out what you think, and people can agree or disagree, as they do in this case. But that was the process.
Can you appreciate the concern, though, of people who heard you on April 11th give a completely different answer, who want to know what was in your mind at that point? Had you made the decision, had you filmed the ad that went out on the night of April 23rd, had you made the decision you were going to announce on April 23rd, when you made those comments that were quite different?
Well, as you know, the ad that we put out is completely consistent with what I've said all along. Long before April 23rd, I said for both Kinder Morgan and for Enbridge that there would be no equivalency agreement, that we'd have made in BC environmental assessment. So I think really that's not a correct thing to bring in there. We believe in made in BC environmental assessments on these projects. We've said that consistently over time. What we're doing and what we did in the Kinder Morgan case was simply say very clearly what we thought and what we thought about the future of the Port of Metro Vancouver. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, especially in an election campaign.
Can you clarify
Time's
your
up, folks. We got
position
time for one more.
on the Northern Gateway pipeline? You say you're opposed to it, yet you still keep on coming back to this idea of a made in BC assessment. Again, what is the point of the assessment if you're going to oppose it?
Well, as you know, we presently have, and this will apply to Kinder Morgan as well as Enbridge, we presently have an equivalency agreement that says that the decision of the federal government is the decision of the provincial government. And so in the first 7 days of an NDP government, as I have said since August of 2012, in fact, I've said in that case that we would withdraw from that equivalency agreement and have our own review here. And you have to do that. And the difference between that and the Premier's position is Ottawa should make the decision, grant essentially the BC approval, and then after the fact, do something or harass in the permitting process if they don't like it anymore. I think our decision and our approach is straightforward. We're going to make the decision in provincial jurisdiction here in British Columbia about Enbridge Northern Gateway, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Is the review just theater, though, to give you the reasons you need to oppose it? I mean, you say you're opposing it, so again, people are confused as to why you need a review if you already know what your decision is.
We need a made in BC process, and I've said that very clearly from the beginning. I've said very clearly what we're going to do, which is to get out of the equivalency agreement. I've said clearly what we're going to do in provincial jurisdiction, which is to address that issue, and I think that's the right approach. Thank you very much. Thank you. How's that?
So John, your party news release says you won the debate. Could you elaborate?
Well, if my team wasn't positive, how could I be?
How do you think you did?
Well, I think it was an interesting morning, and I think it's a good prep for Monday evening.
What do you expect on Monday evening?
I think it'll be somewhat different. I think that this morning was a little bit of feel out the other guy, and I think that Monday evening we'll really get to the point and really to the nub of a lot of the issues.
John, you've lost 3 candidates to date. What's going on?
Well, our scrutiny, I think, is as good as it gets. Are the folks that are doing the examining the track records, if you will, of our candidates are all volunteers. They've been working their hearts out, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Or you don't investigate deeply enough. That happens.
You said you had a really big vetting process, though, in previous interviews with 45-page questionnaires and such and things like that. I mean, these are a lot of mistakes, all in a week span.
Well, that's right, but you can't anticipate everything. We've done the best that we can with the resources that we have. I think that our vetting process, for the most part, has been quite good. We've had a lot of people that we had to review, and as I say, the folks that are doing that are volunteers, but I think they've done a great job, and things are going to happen. We've acted quickly when there's been troubles. I can't say the same certainly for the Liberals.
How many candidates did you turn away as a result of that?
I can't give you that number.
Were there any?
Pardon?
Were there any?
Oh, yes, but I don't know the number. Yes.
John, what do you think people learned in this debate about you that maybe they didn't know before and would appeal to them as a voter?
Well, that's a good question. I think that you probably would have a better answer to that than I did. Yeah. Well, what I try to do, I guess, is to answer the questions as best as I can to get our point of view out, which is we've got to grow the economy in British Columbia. We've got to create jobs. What I found particularly disappointing as a as a British Columbian is the fact that Mr. Dix is so negative on the growth in the resource sector in this province. I think it bodes ill for the future. There's no question about it. I think over the past week, the fact that more often than not the Liberals can't get their story straight suggests that there's a problem there as well.
Mr. Cummins, do you expect to lose any more candidates? Do you think they're the three that have gone? Do you think we're going to be seeing any more releases from the party on this?
I can't answer that question, Ian. As I say, we did the best that we can in vetting candidates, and we've acted decisively when wrongdoing or inappropriate statements have been made.
How many candidates do you have now?
I don't know that number, Ian.
Out of the 85?
I don't know the number, sorry.
Before the campaign started, you had an entire change in your communications department, and now 3 more candidates. How can the people of BC be confident that with all of these changes and such, that you can run an entire province?
Well, I think that if you look at our operation, it's a small operation. Changes have been made for strategic reasons. There have been no payouts when people have left. Compare that to the Liberals and the changes in the office of the Premier over the past 2 years. Our changes are insignificant.
But it doesn't cost a lot of money to check Google and some of these people.
We've done that. We've gone back as far as we can on the Google. As I said, we've had a huge number of candidates that we've had to check. You go back 100 pages, whatever the case may be, and if somebody goes back 500, they may find something. We did the best what we can. Obviously, no party wants the kind of embarrassment that comes when you have to pull somebody's ticket, but that's what happens. That's life.
Have you sort of launched a renewed effort at this point, given these recent incidents, to sort of go back over and kind of revet?
I can assure you that's the case.
Is this sort of the growing pains of a party that you're in, John? I mean, you've taken it from a distant position in 2009. You're, approaching somewhat.
Well, what it's an indication of is that when there's action to be taken, we take action. If you consider the Liberals, you got Mr. Foster, who the Auditor General had scathing comments about the operation of his constituency office, the expenditures that were made for office improvements, and yet he's still a candidate. There's other problems I think that the Liberals have had and they've simply overlooked. We haven't. We've taken action. If there's an impaired driving charge, we took action. That's not been the case with the Liberals. So there's the comparison if you want.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Ben, can I have my BlackBerry? Thanks. I've got your glasses. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Premier, your thoughts on the debate?
Well, again, it's another day where I'm working hard to make sure people know where I stand on the issues and talking about a strong economy, a secure tomorrow, talking about how we need to grow the economy, not grow government if we want to be able to do all the things that people expect our province to be able to do. I mean, to me, That's the choice in this campaign. There's a very clear, stark choice between Mr. Dix and myself, the two people who could be premier of the province, and this election really matters. So I did my best again today to try and talk about the things that I stand for and talk about the importance of a strong economy.
Why do you keep going back to the credit rating reports that do not actually say the budget is balanced? Several times now you've gone back with that. They do not say your budget is balanced.
Well, Sean, let me just read to you what the credit rating agencies say. Dominion Bond Rating Service says, the upcoming provincial election has the potential to delay or cancel the implementation of some of the budgetary measures. The agency believes that this could result in a change of direction. Standard & Poor's, we could revise the outlook to negative or lower if we come to expect the province's after-tax deficits to continue for an extended period as a share of operating revenues continue to rise. Moody's said, should fiscal discipline be lost and or the province's debt burden and debt service ratios increase more than on a temporary basis, this could apply a pressure on the province's ratings. So what the agencies, what all three of them said, and they said it in different ways, I appreciate that. They don't speak the common tongue, but what they are all saying is they would not maintain a AAA credit rating, the best credit rating in the world here in British Columbia, if we do not balance our budget, if we do not maintain fiscal discipline. And then they did maintain our AAA credit rating because they do believe the budget is balanced. And, you know, Adrian Dix hopes to get a job out of this election. So of course he's going to say the budget isn't balanced. Well, the folks at Moody's who believe the budget is balanced, obviously because they've maintained our credit rating, don't have a job to get out of this.
That's a de facto, you're saying that when they maintain the AAA credit rating, they are saying it is balanced.
Well, what they say in their reports is they say they will not, and it's certainly in financial language, they say the credit rating will go down if we don't maintain fiscal discipline. That's code for if you don't balance your budget, we're taking away your credit rating. And they have maintained our credit rating, the best credit rating in the world. So.
Your budget is balanced. I'm not saying that at all. You keep referring to it, but that's not what they're saying.
They're talking about maintaining our fiscal discipline. They're saying that we've done that. They say that we've done a really good job of managing the budget. And when they talk about fiscal discipline, what that translates as a balanced budget, making sure that we are keeping our economy strong, and making sure that we are going to be able to grow this province rather than shrink it. So, I mean, to me, that's the seal of approval from the credit rating agencies. And, you know, you can believe the credit rating agencies who say we have fiscal discipline and that we're doing a good job of managing the government and controlling spending, or you can believe Adrian Dix, who hopes to get a job at the end of this election campaign.
Jonathan? Did the credit rating go down when your predecessor had a deficit budget?
Well, after 2008, we were in the worst financial recession we've been in since the 20s. And every country and every jurisdiction in the world pretty much ended up running serious deficits. But we are now, well, it's all in context though too, remember. And so in that context, when every country in the world was running huge deficits and was investing in stimulus to grow the economy, we're not in that world anymore. We are now in a world where the economies are recovering and where the credit rating agencies expect governments to balance. And so that's what they said in their report, is they expect governments to maintain fiscal discipline in order to maintain our credit rating. And they further said they are concerned, and some of them were quite pointed about this, I think it was the DBRS report, that if the government were to change, they expect a change in fiscal direction, and they expect that that could mean a downgrade in our credit rating. What's that code for? If the NDP get elected, we'll see an end to balanced budgets, and we'll start paying much more interest on our debt to the folks in New York because we've lost our credit rating.
Premier Jonathan has a question for you. All the statements you just read are backwards. They are saying fiscal discipline, yes, they are certainly upholding that, backwards looking. What you're talking about is the budget, the forward-looking planning document that they will assess at public accounts, and as they're saying, if fiscal discipline hasn't been maintained according to that document, they will downgrade. That is not them saying your budget is balanced. How can you go make that leap and say your budget is balanced and they say so?
Because they're expressing confidence in the budget, in that. They are expressing confidence in both the revenues and the spending targets that we have in it. And you can see that in the depth of the reports. So they've expressed confidence in the budget. I understand that Mr. Dix is going to say and try and undermine people's sense of confidence in the budget. He wants to get a different job after the election, and he will say whatever he needs to try and convince people that he should get that job. But the bond rating agencies, independent agencies, international agencies that have no financial personal interest in this have said they are confident in the budget numbers that we've put forward, and that they're confident that we are maintaining fiscal discipline in British Columbia. You know, I became Premier 2 years ago, and the first thing I did was say, we are going to get government spending under control. We did it. And now we are balancing the budget now that we've got spending under control. Well, once we've got a balanced budget and we're into 3 years of surpluses over the next fiscal plan, that's when we can get ourselves on a path to a debt-free BC. And, you know, you compare that, the choice here in this election is between a party that believes in fiscal discipline, that's demonstrated that we can control government spending, and that has a plan for a debt-free BC, and a party that won't even say they want to balance the budget. When we were in the debate, I asked Mr. Dix if he would balance the budget. I said, when will you balance the budget? And his answer was something about the way the campaign is unfolding. Well, you know what? That's not an answer. The answer that people want to hear is, are you going to balance the budget? And when are you going to balance the budget? People want a timeline for that, not some evasive answer talking about something that wasn't even asked.
Why does what do you think of Mr. Dix's stance on Kinder Morgan, and why does it concern you?
It concerns me because, well, for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, obviously, leaders that are changing their position on the time, all the time are going to scare away investment, kill jobs, shrink our economy. But there is a bigger issue there, and it's an issue of trust. It's an issue for a man who said in January he was going to stick with his principles. And then in April he said, I'm going to stick with my principles. My principles are, we need to see the application first. And then he changed his mind, jettisoned his principles, and admitted that he'd changed his mind back in January. And so for me, it's a pattern of behavior, a willingness to conceal where you really stand on things. And people may disagree with me on things, but I have been absolutely crystal about where we stand and where we want to take the province and what our plan is. That's why I brought out our platform the day before the election even started, because people can disagree if they want, but they have a right to know where all of us stand.
John, do you have a follow-up? You okay? I have a question. Stephen and then Dan. It's Stephen and then Dan, and then I'll come back.
I want to ask you about the spendometer or spendometer, however.
Spendometer, I think, Stephen.
You say the NDP spending adds up to $3 billion. They say it's $2 billion. How do you account for the different math?
Well, look, I've never been in a position to be able to account for NDP math. So I can't really answer that question. We've added it up, and I can get you the numbers that we've added up, and you can have a look at it yourself. We've fully costed our platform, and we have fully costed their platform. They have half costed their platform. So I'll get you those numbers, Stephen. But as I said, I mean, I can't account for NDP math. I couldn't do it in the 1990s, and I can't do it today. It's the same old gang.
And just to follow up on the other topic, on the credit rating agencies, the credit rating agencies certainly are giving your government kudos for your financial performance up until now. So why not focus on that? Why are you trying to spin this into them saying something that they're not saying?
Well, they've expressed confidence in our fiscal performance. They've maintained our credit rating. Do you think that they would have done that when the NDP and Adrian Dix fudged their budget in the 1990s?
But that's not what this is about. This is about you claiming that the credit rating agencies are saying that your current budget is balanced, when that's not what they're saying. And they would have no way of knowing that until the year is over, when the actual numbers actually come.
What they're doing is they're expressing confidence in our revenues and the way we've pegged them. They're expressing confidence in our spending targets that we've set. They're saying that we have maintained fiscal discipline over this last, since I became Premier 2 years ago. And they're saying that if we don't balance our budget, if we hadn't balanced our budget, that we would get a credit downgrade. We did not get that credit downgrade. So, you know, I understand that it's all financial language, but it's also quite correct to say, and I read you the quotes, you should read the reports.
I've read the report.
And the quotes in it are quite clear that they're expressing confidence in the targets and the budget that and they would not have given us that increased credit rating or that maintained our credit rating if we hadn't balanced.
Dan Burr?
Dan.
On a question around helping those who are disabled, you mentioned that you have several candidates who were in wheelchairs. A little bit insensitive.
You know, I think, well, no, you know, Stephanie Cadieux is someone who, as minister responsible for the funding for people with disabilities, has been really clear about the fact that her personal experience has made a very real difference in the public policy that we have brought to the table in trying to improve lives for people with disabilities. You know, it's kind of like we are running a record number of women that our party has ever put forward in any election campaign, without quotas, by the way, because we believe that having women around the table makes a difference. We believe that having people with different life experiences around the table, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a mother, whether you're a young person who's recently graduated from university, all of those people bring a different perspective around the table. We are the cumulative product of our life experience. And so I do think those life experiences are relevant for people, but more importantly though, the point I was making is, those four people have all distinguished themselves in spending a large part of their lives fighting to make life better for people with disabilities. And so I am so proud that they are running for me. Michelle Stilwell, multiple gold medalist at the Paralympics. She's done so much to improve the lives of people with disabilities, and I want to get her elected because she can continue to do that when she's in government as well.
We got a question over on the.
Secondly, said the spending is out of control. Are you going to increase the provincial debt in order to balance budget?
Well, you know, Mr. Cummins has introduced a budget that would add 30% to our province's spending. That is out of control spending. It's not quite as bad as what Adrian Dix might do, but we can't afford to add 30% to the provincial budget without going, I mean, what he would do is he would raise taxes and he would make life less affordable for people in doing that. So, you know, look, he voted NDP in the last election. He's put forward an NDP-style budget. Not that surprising.
We've got two more questions here. First to Shane and then Deanie.
You suggested you keep.
That wasn't Shane,
Sorry,
but
can we just, Shane and Deanie have been waiting for a while, so if we go over that. Shane?
Premier, just, this is a little out of the blue, but I'm curious. You've taken a lot of guff for being a campaigner, but not so much a policymaker. Right now, you've had 2 years in the big chair. What piece of legislation has your government passed that you think will stand the test of time and your name will be on it?
there are a few things. I want to name more than one thing that we've done. You look cumulatively at all of the work that we've done around the jobs plan, and that has been multiple pieces of legislation that we've brought in, and creating 32,000 net new jobs since the jobs plan was introduced in September 2011. Streamlining regulation for mining, for liquefied natural gas, making sure that we are creating a tax competitive environment to grow the economy. You look at all of those changes that we've made in legislation that contribute to the jobs plan. That's a defining piece of legislation over the last 2 years because it's guided everything we've done. We've had a plan to grow the economy. We've stuck with that plan, and we've been successful in growing the economy in very turbulent times. You compare that to the New Democrats. They have no plan. They seem to come up with ideas out of thin air that they scribble on the back of a napkin and call it a platform. And most of those plans involve growing government. That is not going to put people to work. So the jobs plan, raising the minimum wage 3 times, I'm proud of that. Introducing Family Day in British Columbia, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of balancing our budget. That's something that's been important. And, you know, cumulatively, both budgets have meant that we've been able to reduce government spending pretty significantly and control that spending so we can keep taxes down for people.
Last question to Deanie.
I just wanted to ask, what do you think all this election math on budgets and deficits and spending meters does for the confidence that voters can have in whatever government is?
I think at the end of all this, people are going to look at it and they're going to say, there are 2 people who could be premier after the election, me or Adrian Dix. And I think people will look at both of us and say, which one of them is credible on controlling government spending and managing my money well? I haven't made $3 billion worth of promises. I've fully costed and released my entire platform. I wasn't around for a government in the 1990s that vastly expanded government spending, created some of the highest taxes in North America, and that failed to meet every single budget target that they'd set, every single one. So I think when people compare the two of us, despite all the noise from the punditry and all the arguing, really they'll look at us and say, who is it that's going to make sure they can keep my taxes low and control government spending? Only one of us has a record of doing that, and it ain't Mr. Dix. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Have you actually read the bond rating agency's reports?
Yes, I have.
Premier, has Paragon Gaming got cabinet approval to go ahead with the casino?
Okay. Watch out for the gates.